All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from MS Dynamics World. Really pleased to welcome you all to this session all about elevating your finance strategy. As we get started, please know that we do welcome your questions during today's event. Look for the questions block in the webcast interface and enter them at any time as we go. Our presenters will be taking those and answering them after the session ends. So with that, I think we are ready to begin. I'm going to hand things over to Dominic DiMinardo to take us forward.
Thank you. And thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to join our webinar today. Today's topic, elevating your finance strategy in 2025, integrating Microsoft Excel with AI-enabled FP&A solutions. Today, I'm joined by several for the panel and demonstration today. First, I'll start with myself. I run the CPM practice, and I'm a partner here at Citrin Cooperman. And I'm joined by my colleague, Derek. So, Derek, I'll let you go ahead and kick off the introductions.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, and thanks for having us. So another partner at Citrin Cooperman, work on Microsoft digital services with a strong focus on data analytics, Microsoft Power BI, and Microsoft Fabric, and of course, all things AI.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. My name is Rishi Grover. I'm one of the co-founders and the chief solutions architect at Vena Solutions. And today, very happy to be part of the panel and kick off the conversation. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mike.
Thanks, Rishi. So my name is Mike Zepka. I'm Director of Solution Consulting Architecture. My team oversees the use cases and innovation around the various technologies that Vena's building out. So yeah, my role today will just kind of be to walk you through some of the things that we're excited about.
Thanks, gentlemen. And before we kick into the conversation, we'll start off with a few background slides on each of our organizations. So first, we'll start with Citrin Cooperman. We are aligning, our, organization with the leading platforms in the middle market to make sure that there's a proper fit and functional capabilities, for all companies along the digital services maturity model. So Oracle, NetSuite, Salesforce, Vena, and Microsoft are those four leading technologies that we've aligned ourselves with. You can see on the slide, we're almost 3,000 team members strong. We got 25 offices across the U.S., almost $1 billion in revenue. And so from there, I'd like to go ahead and kick it over for an intro on the Vena side.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. At Vena Solutions, we were founded in 2011. We are a software technology company that provides FP&A solutions for our thousands of customers globally. And we are a FP&A technology platform that is built on the Microsoft technology stack. And we can see some of the components there on the right that also we'll be touching a little bit on in our product demonstration later in today's session. But what we're also going to show with our application is our underlying technology, Vena CubeFlex, which will connect to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central as an example to bring in all of that GL data and subledger data and really marry that with user inputs, their forecast, their plan, their budget information. And we're fully integrated with Office 365, including Microsoft Excel, as well as other Microsoft technologies like we have Power BI fully embedded, productized in our application for FP&A. And what we're very excited also to talk about today is all things Gen AI. And how we have been a Copilot for FP&A, which is, again, built on the Microsoft technology stack, really productized as a virtual financial analyst. So with that, Tom, let's get kicked off.
Yeah, thanks, Rishi. Excited to jump into the conversation here. So we'll go ahead and get to the first question for today's panel. And I'd love to start with Derek to see if maybe you could lead this question off. And the first question is, what are the biggest challenges that Dynamics-based finance teams face today?
Yeah, so I think the question, not just for Dynamics and not just finance, but the issue of data and data governance. So a lot of companies see this magical revolution happening with AI. They had their ChatGPT moment, and then they try to overlay that to their enterprise data. And I think that they were in for a bit of a rude awakening because, in order for you to be successful with Gen AI, and in order for you to be successful with all the new AI and analytical tooling, you need to have your data house in order. So I think the biggest challenge is really making sure that you're putting yourself in a position to be successful, right? How do we get the data that might be in Dynamics, but also might live in Excel spreadsheets or Salesforce or any line of business application, SQL, and bringing that story together by unifying your data? So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that that companies are facing, because they want the insights, and in order to get the insights, they need to have the data in a way that will yield those insights.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I completely agree on the data side, and it's also amazing, even smaller organizations, of course, mid and larger enterprise, just a volume of data that's now available. Like when we think of all of our different business units, our departments, they all have lots of different SaaS solutions that they're using. Every click, every action is ultimately storing that data that can bring intelligence, bring insights to help you make decisions and mitigate risk and what have you. So yeah, just the process of determining what are the most important sets of data, how do you bring it together, how do you normalize it so I can get value from that. And also, in the world we're in today, just the amount of resources that we have available, right? Most companies now are really into cost optimization and let's do more with less. So there's just so much happening, so much data, but not always do we have enough resources to put all that mental energy into doing very strategic work. And that's where technology can help, that we'll talk about today. And there's just so much happening in the economy, a lot of different macroeconomy situations that are happening that, there's a lot of unknowns by different industries. So the ability to be very agile on how we plan our business, how we execute our business, and also be very nimble to be able to change quickly and do that based upon data available and intelligent insights. So just lots happening, lots of data, and we need to learn how to do more with less, and technology can be a huge enabler in being able to do that.
And before we move on to the next question, one of the things I know, and it's probably fairly obvious for the audience, is the overemphasis on data, right? And I think we've all been kind of conditioned about kind of on the conversation of big data, but I think it wasn't until AI where we started to really, I think, see the value and maybe even the extent to which we can actually leverage our data to really get those insights that allow us to affect change in the business, but also to keep speed with the pace at which business is moving today. I'm curious, if data is at the center of generative AI and really just being able to keep up with the pace of business today, for organizations that are struggling with like getting their arms around the data, like where do they start before we get into the next kind of part of this conversation?
Yeah, I think one area there, Dom, is for leveraging AI-enabled technologies, it solves specific use cases as well. So I would say, when we look at an organization, and even if you just start with your department, what are some of the most manual things that are happening that takes, finance professionals who are some of the smartest people that I know, but a lot of the times they're doing very manual tasks. And what are those manual tasks? And use that as kind of a pilot in a certain sense. This is the use case, this is the objective, and what is the dependent data that I need to be able to address that use case, and start realizing what those data dependencies are, and have that also aligned with a broader corporate strategy of creating a data warehouse. And ultimately, you want everything to be in a single version of the truth, if you will. But use case by use case, you can start to just define what is very important for me and make that part of a larger corporate strategy. Yeah, but you don't have to boil the ocean initially. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I think this is such an overwhelming time to be working in technology. You see all of these AI tools, and you get paralyzed by where do I start, right? Mm-hmm. And without a strategy or a goal in mind, right, you're just data for data's sake. So while data is, I think, the most important part of this whole evolution that we're seeing with Gen AI, of course, targeted use cases that give you focus for why are you taking the data and normalizing the data that you're doing, so you align the outcomes with the data that you're curating. So there's value behind each and every deliberate action you're taking. So could not agree more.
And also it's a journey, right? It's not overnight, I want this to happen. It's let's get started. Let's get some quick wins. Let's learn some lessons and let's evolve, because this will forever be a journey. AI tech is going to evolve. We're really at the beginning of some amazing things that are about to happen. So just getting started on that journey, experimenting, learning, and improving over time, I think is the best practice.
Yeah.
One of the things, Dominic, you mentioned there is this with the kind of the event of AI through ChatGPT, kind of showing off exactly what this can potentially be. I think a lot of organizations, those that were slow to sort of move into cloud technology, I think they're rethinking that strategy too. I think there's a lot of trend now to be a little bit more accepting of cloud technology. You know, in the past, it's been resistance around, you know, trust and security and things like that. But, you know, I think with all these new benefits, it's starting to outweigh the cons. And so I think that's, you know, that is a bit of a trend, I would say, that in the industry that we're seeing with our customers to sort of be more trustworthy with the cloud.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think with the, you know, kind of the closing kind of discussion on this question around trends and journeys, I think that's a great segue to go to our next question in terms of, you know, how is Gen I shaping the future of finance? I think, you know, it's been reiterated here, and you've all probably read in the you know, in the news outlets, you know, that OpenAI, for example, ChatGPT had, you know, 100 million users faster than any other technology company, you know, in history. And I think we feel it. Everyone's talking about some sort of use of AI, but how is it shaping the future of finance? Maybe Rishi, we can start off with you this time.
Yeah. If you kind of, you know, I think ChatGPT is remarkable. It got the attention of everyone around the world, which is phenomenal. When we look at just the science behind AI, or what's happening with AI in general, right? And then Gen AI is a category of that. It really is the science that helps make machines think like humans. And it's a very broad set of technologies that really recognizes patterns in data and makes predictions. And it's using statistical models, some basic, some extremely advanced. But what's remarkable is this technology has been around for a very long time. But now we're in a world where the amount of data available to really optimize these AI and machine learning models, as Mike mentioned, kind of the computational power of the cloud, that intersection is there now, where some of the smartest people in the world are heavily investing and innovating in that area. And that was a birth of, for example, OpenAI and then ChatGPT. So it's just remarkable, you know, how quickly this has changed. And there was a lot of theory of machine learning and AI in the past. Some companies kind of innovated there. Others, it was just too technical to do it. But now it's so consumerized that everyone in some capacity has been using it and has seen practical value out of it. And now that there's so much attention in this area, especially Gen AI, it's just going to be so exciting how this is going to impact not just the Office of Finance, but the world, really. And, you know, in terms of shaping the future of finance, as kind of I mentioned before, is, you know, very, very smart people, a lot of times doing very manual, very tactical tasks. And Gen AI, you know, I think has a lot of advantages. One of the biggest ones is just productivity gains, and using natural language for either me, the finance user, to be able to quickly kind of type in a question and very quickly get an answer. Of course, a lot of dependencies on the quality of data that Derek mentioned, but also enabling the organization to be self-sufficient. And finance, a lot of times in IT, has provided technology and reporting tools or BI tools to help them become self-serve, but really they end up going back to the Office of Finance. But now, if they can use natural language to get answers, to get reports, to get insights, to use natural language to build, to generate assets, and that's what Gen AI is all about. But whether it generates text, generate reports, generates dashboards, I think just, you know, increasing productivity is the main thing that is going to help with finance, such that these finance individuals who are highly intelligent people are able to do much more strategic value add. I think there's going to be a long kind of journey here on how Gen AI is going to help finance, but I think just getting that productivity, getting that time savings is going to be such a huge quick win in a very short time.
If we extend that a little bit more, I mean, not just, you know, question and answer type of assistance, but also, you know, especially, you know, in our world, everybody uses Excel and these types of applications, and sometimes you just need to be able to write some complex formulas. You know, there's maybe a lot of different variables that you need to be able to incorporate within that logic, and so asking that to just design this logic for you, make sure it's right, you know, test everything out. So whether that's, you know, Excel formulas, or maybe it's some sort of VBA script, or, you know, Office script. Google in many different ways too, like just knowledge, like how do I calculate FUTA exactly, different tax rates, just to kind of verify these things. So it's really easy to get to those answers. And be able to generate your reports properly, generate the logic associated with that, variances, and and just simply by asking the questions in your language, and everybody will be able to take advantage of it and become even better, level up that whole team.
Yeah, I think I'm going to sound like an echo chamber here, but it's the democratization of insights, right? We have natural language that is driving complex analysis that the average end user in finance, or really anywhere, it's not just finance, but specifically finance, they weren't writing SQL queries, they weren't writing Python. Now they're writing natural language, and it's writing the Python and the SQL for them and giving them the answers that they would have never been able to even come close to touching even 2 years ago, a year ago. So, I think just reiterating everything that the two of you said, completely agree.
Well, and Derek, I think with what I've heard you all say, with the use cases that you've mentioned, AI as a really smart assistant to bring new skill sets to the finance team, and Rishi and Mike describing productivity gains. I start to think about AI as more instead of artificial intelligence, it's just augmented intelligence, right? It's making really smart people even smarter and more capable to spend more time on the value add side of the capabilities of what finance organizations can provide.
Yeah, I agree. And that's also why I think the term Copilot is so clever. You're still the pilot, right? This is your Copilot to help you with what you're trying to accomplish and make you more efficient.
Great. Let's move on to the next question here. And the next one here is, what are the most realistic use cases for AI in the Office of Finance today? I think, Derek, you touched on a few of these around Python and SQL, but I'd love to hear, from you, maybe you first, since I've kind of trading off between you and Rishi here, and then we'll go to Rishi.
Yeah, it's just going to be a reiteration of what I just pointed out, right? The ability to just have an idea, right? So, we talked about data before, and data being so important, and having your data house in order, but it's a different type of order. So in the olden days, 2 years ago, a year ago, before we had all these Gen AI tools, right? We had to think about the data in terms of its structure, and it had to be very, very rigid in terms of how things were defined. And the data house that you need to get in order today, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to look like it did a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's just a matter of making your data understandable to the human prompt, right? So if we think about that in the Python or SQL example, some of the use cases that we're running through is we're bringing data in from multiple systems, bring it into a data warehouse that has a semantic model that has clearly defined attributes, clearly defined field names. We have an understanding that a human could read and say, okay, I understand the relationships here, which is really what empowers us to say, I have a question today that might be totally different than the question I'm asking tomorrow, but because the data house is in order from a semantic perspective, we can ask anything and it can generate the query. And then all of a sudden, I don't write Python, I don't write SQL, but I am getting Python and SQL level results returned to me without having somebody pre-build a dashboard for me. It's not a starting point. It's a conversation. And I think that is the not just the most realistic, but the one that will have the biggest and most immediate impact across the board.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting. A lot of technology out there is really highly focused on user adoption, ease of use, ease of learning, but you still got to learn it, right? And what's awesome about Gen AI is that is truly the best user experience because it's the human language experience, which is phenomenal. And when I look at the market and I look at AI for the Office of Finance, I really always think of it in three main categories. One is all things AI-powered visualizations. A lot of BI technology that's out there at the end of the day, a lot of the widgets, I'll kind of call it, is using machine learning models, statistical models, and AI technology behind the scenes that generate insights. So there's a big focus there, big value for the Office of Finance and the organization, of course, as a whole. The other is on all areas predictive forecasting. That could be basic predictive forecasting. That can be very advanced predictive forecasting. And even if you look at Excel, exactly, Derek, as you mentioned, now Python is actually now embedded within an Office 365 license. And it has a great user interface for you to have this prompt to use English language to be able to generate Python code, which ultimately can take, if the data is well structured within Excel, to be able to write Python code to produce what-if scenario simulations, predictions. Excel has always had great formulas that is built on machine learning statistical models to help with more predictive forecasting. And a lot of FP&A technologies are heavily investing in that area as well to make it more consumable, easier to use. And then finally, what big focus on today is just all things Gen AI. So just quickly getting answers, getting insights, running models, using natural language, really, again, to help with that efficiency. So the AI-powered visualizations is all things kind of insights. Gen AI is all things efficiency, productivity, as well as insights. And the predictive forecasting really just helps me produce over time more accurate predictions and forecasts. And of course, as that evolves and gets better in your forecasting model, the efficiency, of course, has its value out there as well.
Well, one other thing that my team sort of works on is also trying to fix historical data, which is also kind of a neat way to take advantage of AI. And that's taking, maybe you have historical data that has random anomalies. Maybe there's, a fire broke out in a factory and then, it'll shut down for a few months. And that's unreliable data that it's not, that shouldn't happen. So we want to be able to smooth that data out, make it a little bit more realistic. And if there's gaps in the data, use AI to guess what potentially did happen in those points in time where we don't have the right data recorded. So there's so many different ways to approach this. It can help in so many different ways that sometimes we're not even uncovering those ways yet.
Yeah, and there's so much work and energy that data scientists and others have already done. Like if you look at all the different types of ML models that are in Python, there's a bunch of different ones, and some are, if you're a business that runs on seasonality, or if you do have these anomalies, etc. A lot of that work has been done, and now we're in a world with Gen AI and other amazing technologies where you can take that, integrate that with your data, pick the type of business that you are or those anomalies, and have the system really generate these results without you having to be a data scientist now.
Yeah, and just one last point to bring that all together, right? So I think it's the fact that we have our data. It was always our data silo, and then it was the external world, right? Those worlds are coming together now, right? So we've got large language models that understand our data, but they also understand the world around us, right? So you talk about seasonality. What happened in 2021? Why did my sales dip? Okay, well, there was a global pandemic. That is information that you don't need to bring to your model. It's just general knowledge. So I think that is just a remarkable element of this whole dynamic that is truly shifting the Office of Finance.
I think it's remarkable if you ask what happened in 2021 and you didn't know there was a pandemic.
Touche.
This has been great conversation, and what I'd like to do is, those are the few questions we had prepared for today's webinar, but it's not over. I'd like to pass the kind of the conversation over to Mike to lead the next few slides here. So I'll play slide master here as you take us through the next few slides.
Well, thanks, Dominic. Really, we really want to get through today is really a little bit more on talking about the technology behind the scenes, getting a bit of an understanding of how we take advantage of the existing technology that Microsoft provides, layer on top of it, which has now kind of built an entirely new industry of AI vendors for various purposes. And so I want to kind of address that right off the bat. And we'll kind of showcase a little bit of how Vena has incorporated some of this technology and now how we're building out our own FP&A Copilot options for our customers as well. So really quickly, at the very top here, we have our demystifying generative AI. And if you think about how people ask questions to get answers, there's a lot that the AI engine has to actually do to interpret that and understand the context, right? So the example that we have here is, can you plan a trip to France for me? So it has to interpret the words that you're using. It has to make assumptions around that. So plan, that's maybe something that I don't have yet, so I need recommendations. A trip, meaning I need to go somewhere. So we probably start to think about suggesting flights or train options or what have you. Then it understands that I'm asking for France in particular. So it's probably going to drop the trains and we're going to go straight to flights. And then now France is a country, so we need to land somewhere. So we got to think about what are the various destinations that people use. So just being able to try and interpret that and try to understand all the various possibilities and variables that might occur, and still try to understand the context to give me an answer. So how this actually tries to bring it together is, the base is that large language model, or LLM. Could be ChatGPT or GPT-4, sorry. Or it could be, any one of the others out there, like the Llama one, the Groks, and there's so many models out there these days that you can take advantage of. So in this case, from a Microsoft standpoint, with OpenAI's GPT, that's kind of the base, the language component of it. But you got to ask it questions, or you want to have a conversation, create statements. So those are going to be considered your prompts. And those prompts need to be, once you extend beyond kind of that general knowledge that it understands, you want to start asking questions and having a conversation about your specific data. You need to be able to create these connections with different data sources. So take that relevant data that's in your private systems, and let the AI learn that data, and let's teach it a few things. Right. So most of the time most of the ways that Vena and other vendors out there are using this is to teach it how to query the data. If somebody asks, say, I want to see a report for 2023, what are the assumptions it needs to take in order to come back with something that's relevant to you and your organization? So that's where that rules engine comes in. It needs to understand the data and the rules that we need to train it on in order to be able to retrieve answers for you. From here, we have our Azure, the Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services. This is kind of, again, that little bit more detail on the Microsoft technology that underlies it. We have our base large language model, a rules engine, and of course a prompt flow. Prompt flow is where we start to think about, how do we connect to other systems? What kind of integrations do we want to be able to bring into it? Take that, what we really want to take advantage of here is the fact that this is enterprise grade, designed to be utilized for organizations. It's not just a kind of a consumer type of product. It's designed to be used by organizations. Now, the prompt flows where we teach it how to either run queries or generate content. Microsoft has implemented this throughout their Office applications. So if you look at Excel, PowerPoint, and others, you ask it a question in a normal prompt in English or any other language, and then Microsoft has implemented that technology to be able to analyze that data through Excel or generate new slides in a PowerPoint. So like the relevant data in the Excel approach is the data that's in Excel, and now it's taking that and generating rules. It's already been taught some rules on how to interpret that and be able to give you analytics around it, right? So that's kind of the Microsoft example of the Microsoft approach. As we move on to the Vena approach, we've now created a Vena Copilot specifically for FP&A, or financial planning and analysis. So this is designed for finance teams. You can, as a finance professional, you can ask it questions that way, and it will give you answers as if the AI itself is a finance professional as well. So we want to be able to, make it purpose-built. And of course, it does get smarter over time, right? As we add more data, as we generate new rules, as people kind of rank and, say this is a bad answer or this is a good answer, it's going to improve over time. So the more we use it, the better it gets over time. And when it's best in class, what really that means is around security. We want to make sure if it's enterprise level, it is fully secured. Now, we're going to give a bit of a demo here of the Vena Copilot, as well as some additional AI examples. But ultimately, the way we see our Copilot today, it's there to gather data, generate reports, analyze trends, and do any kind of analytics on top of it. We're going to see some examples of that as we go here in today's demo. Now, it could be used across the board. I mean, we have finance is kind of our target, but anybody top to bottom within an organization can take advantage of it. Obviously CEOs, CFO type people just want to be able to ask questions, get answers. Finance might want to use it for generative AI, might want to use generative AI to create reports and get a head start on content. And others can use it for things that maybe aren't relevant to finance. Maybe it's operational queries or prompts that they want to be able to ask about, what's our inventory on hand and how much do we need to prepare for the next 3 months in order to meet the demand that's been there. So we want to be able to make it available to everybody and accessible to, and make it relevant to what they are interested in. So with that, I will be running through a solution demo. So we're going to switch over to my screen and we'll give you a little bit of an overview how Vena implemented this type of technology. For the group here that's with me, if you have any comments, just hop in and provide any context that you'd like. So what I'd like to start with is, one example is, as Rishi mentioned a little bit earlier, we actually incorporated the Power BI application, embedded it into the Vena application so that, our customers could take advantage of the best-in-class technology when it comes to visuals and analytics. And so that's, this is an example of a dashboard built out of Power BI that's available to our customers. I like to kind of highlight, first of all, that on the left side, we have a number of these filters. And the thing that I find really important is this ability to gather data from a number of different sources, right? If you think about, you have your Dynamics ERP, whether it's Business Central, 365, whatever that is, right? You want to be able to pull that information in and merge it with other data that has been collected. Maybe it's, your budget data, your forecast data, or maybe it's other systems. Maybe it's Salesforce. You want to be able to get your pipeline information and what the prediction for what the revenue might look like, and then merge it with your actuals and kind of see where the trends are, where the gaps are, and so on. So we want to be able to gather that information. There's so much data that it can be able to crunch through in order to come back with these types of dashboards. You have the ability to kind of filter and sort and organize this dashboard how you'd like. I'll just kind of highlight a few examples here. We have a number of metrics that we're looking at, some top 5 operating expense accounts here. The one I'll focus in on is the bottom right. We have our revenue here by entity, kind of an interactive dashboard. Again, I can right click here to drill down on this particular amount to actually see kind of a breakdown of the US. Say I'm presenting this with maybe in a board deck. I want to break this out to a full screen and maybe get some insights. Something like just hovering over a particular value is now starting to incorporate some of that artificial intelligence and surfacing information to me that maybe it would take me a long time to discover. I can probably click through and do some drill downs and figure this stuff out. But here it's actually telling me, hey, my scenario has trended down, resulting in a 70% decrease between this and that period. This is something I might want to look into. Right? It's not necessarily giving me an answer to what I'm looking for, but maybe it's guiding me to the answer because there might be more to uncover afterwards. Now, if I am interested, say I want to drill down here, I want to actually pull some additional data, maybe get a breakdown of all the details associated with the New York sales there. I want to see all the various accounts, the different products that we sell. And some additional insights here. At the top right, we have a smart narrative. Again, it's just kind of giving me some additional context around the data that I'm looking at. Everything, again, totally available to be filtered and sorted and organized however you'd like. You can export this and do whatever you'd like with it. A couple of other things I'll open up here on this OPEX tab. You'll see there's some analysis around our spending. So all the expenses that were incurred over the year, we're doing some comparisons here from our actuals to our forecast. The one I like to focus most on here is our key influencers graph. This is a really interesting graph because it does, across segments or across dimensions, it's actually gathering data from so many different places. And you ask it a question, like in this case, we have what influences my operating expenses to increase. And, that could be something like there's been an increase in our salaries. So that's an account level answer, but maybe specifically in, say, New York City, there's some increase in expenses there, or maybe it's my sales department. And so it's really trying to gather all the different perspectives of your data, right? If you pull in your data from so many different places, it's going to try and interpret that properly. And if I want to do some comparisons, I can click on my sales department and see exactly, how are they spending relative to their departments, or how much are salaries relative to other accounts. And so we want to be able to gather that information very, very quickly to make very quick decisions and, identify opportunities for growth or inefficiencies in our business. So these are the things that we want to be able to gather and do with this type of technology, and really kind of, again, level up the people who are doing the analytics. One other example here is, anomaly detection or predictive forecasting, right? The way we kind of typically say it is we want at least 2 years of historical data to start to get, relatively accurate predictions into the future. But the more historical data you have, the more accurate those predictions can be. And again, we're taking advantage of all the things that we talked about a little bit earlier around, smoothing data, ignoring anomalies, and so on, right? So we want to be able to have accurate forecasts to be able to do this. Or the top graph here, it's actually showing anomaly detection. So anomalies, in many cases are going to be data points that are outside of the expected value, right? We expect, in this period to be between this number and that number. If that's not where we are, like you see some of these data points here popping up, if that's not where we are, that's considered an anomaly. And so selecting that anomaly, it's going to give me a little bit more detail. It's going to break down some additional context for me, and maybe compare some scenarios and give me some insights that I can now use to find the answers that I'm looking for. Okay, so this is kind of the type of stuff that we really want our customers to be spending their time. And as Rishi said, you have a lot of smart people. Some of the smartest people that we know are people in finance and accounting. We just want to enable them with the right tools to be able to, level up their work and really focus on that strategic thinking rather than just getting tasks done, linking files. Let's automate all that. So that's a bit on the sort of the visual side of it. Then we have the AI Copilot. So in this case, we have our Vena Copilot. And this is very much conversational. I have prepared a few different questions that we can kind of ask it so we can see the types of results that we get here. We'll start here with our, what is my budgeted year-over-year growth in revenue between this year and that year? I can ask it that question. So now it's doing some crunching, right? It's got to understand and interpret my question. It's got to make a few assumptions along the way, and then ultimately give me an answer. So in this case, it's letting me know that my revenue between 23 and 24, there's a pretty large gap there. And so and then gives me a little bit of a calculation. But that's just a Q&A, right? That's just an answer that I asked for. It had to do a little bit of number crunching there. Pretty straightforward though. But now we're going to give it something a little bit harder. This is where we talk about, maybe doing some on the fly what if analysis. So in this case, the question is, let me just jump back up there. How would a 10% increase in revenue in New York contribute to the organization's gross margin? So now it's a little bit more tricky. It's got to do it's got to interpret it quite well here. And here it's actually giving me some pretty nice steps that it took in order to come to that ultimate conclusion towards the bottom there. I'll do one last one here and this is on purpose, one that's a little bit vague. So here's, is there seasonality in my revenue, right? I didn't specify almost anything, right? I just kind of asked it a vague question. So it's got to start to know what to do with this. So here's actually an interesting answer it's giving us. Evaluating each data for each year reveals meaningful patterns and trends. Overall, there's a clear upward trajectory in revenue between 2020 and 2023. And again, I'm not going to go through all the details here, but it's giving me those insights. It's analyzing the data from a number of different perspectives to something for me to think about, right? Giving me, there's even identifying some of the anomalies we may have seen a minute ago there in the other screen. So these are the ways that we really want to start to utilize this AI technology. And a couple of last things here. When it comes to generative AI, that was generative in a sense where it's generating answers for me. I may want to ask it to generate things like reports for me. So here I'm asking to build a general operating expense report for Los Angeles and New York for Q1 and 2. So sending that out, again, it's taking all those different prompt flows that Vena has designed using the Microsoft underlying technology to then generate that report for us. And let's go ahead and open up that report. That's great. Okay, so now it's opening the report up here in Excel. And again, this is Excel, real Excel. So what that means is I can take advantage of Excel's Copilot or analytics that Excel has, or Excel scripting, or any kind of functions, formulas. All of this can be utilized. And what's neat here is that it created an interactive ad hoc report for me. I'm just going to switch a setting here to make the indents a little bit more apparent. So let's go ahead and refresh that. And now I can modify this. So let's say, maybe it picked the wrong year for me. I want to include year as an option here. So I'm going to go ahead and select maybe a number of, let's go with 22, 3, 4, and 5. And you'll see here, it's actually going to generate a little drop down for me. So now if I want to run this data for 2023, or maybe it's 2022, I can kind of generate that. So, I didn't have to build this. I can modify it and kind of tweak it to my specifications, but I didn't have to actually design this entirely from scratch. It generated it for me. I can continue customizing this, maybe do a variance analysis by dropping our let's put this in the columns there, by dropping in some scenarios. And maybe I want to see actuals alongside my budgets, maybe do some variance analysis, things like that. It'll bring that data in. So the idea there is that, we want to be quick, we want to be efficient, we want to get to the numbers, we want to get to answers so that we can spend more of our time on strategy, on decision-making, and other things like that. And of course, we talked about the various personas. So one last thing I'll kind of highlight here is this ability to, Copilot is as good as, it's only as good as it being available to you. And so, what Vena has now taken steps towards is to make it available everywhere. So in this case, we've integrated with Microsoft Teams. You can open up your mobile phone, open up the app, and continue asking it questions without ever having to, essentially log into the Vena application through, a normal traditional browser. So these are the things I wanted to kind of run through today. Any final comments from the group that about what I've just covered?
No, I think that's great. And I think hopefully this shows the audience, great examples of taking very broad technologies like OpenAI, broad technologies like Power BI as an example, but how, vendors that are very focused on, for example, for Vena, focused on FP&A, taking these underlying technologies and, making it very personified for our target audience, for FP&A, for business stakeholders. And if all the data is centralized, structured well, as we talked about before, then, magic like this can happen. And really the big advantage here is making you more efficient, more productive with almost no training. Again, such that you can spend more time on value add exercises for the organization.
Yeah, and I think that was great. I mean, not only to get the, use the natural language to ask questions and get text answers back, but also to use the natural language to get an actual report back that, may not be perfect, but gets you most of the way there for you to put the, kind of the spit polish on it, if you will, to get it ready for national audience to review. I'd love to take back the screen at this point, and we'll go to a slide that I think actually I'm going to have, Rishi cover.
Yeah, awesome. So what I encourage all of our customers at Vena to do, people that speak in the Office of Finance, is get curious. It's this technology isn't going anywhere. It's only going to be evolving. And again, because there's so much attention being put in this new technology, there's so many areas for you to learn, for you to understand how to even build your own Copilot agent, as an example. So look at what other parts of the organization are doing with AI tech, how they're experimenting with it. There's tons of stuff on the web for you to explore as well. And even make it personal. Like if you do have 365 licenses, you have access to what's called their Copilot agent. And you can make something that Mike showed you, but maybe for your department, if you have lots of information that's stored on a SharePoint or a OneDrive, where people need to look up in documents and manually find something to perform their job, you can create a Copilot agent where you create that user experience. You point to, hey, this is my data source, which could just be SharePoint files, and then make that available to your department employees, where they can use natural language to get answers where otherwise they might have manually been doing that before. Or experiment with Python in Excel. Python can be a very complicated language, but it doesn't need to be. And just play around with Excel, Python, using natural language to create a script to produce a predictive forecast and just put in some actual historical data. Play around with it, have fun, explore. And then as we mentioned before, is you can easily step into this. Don't boil the ocean. Now that you've experimented with it, you understand more on how it works. then, hey, what is a use case in my organization or my department today that's very manual? And let's get the data prepared and let's create an awesome user experience with Gen AI technology to get some quick wins in the organization.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank Derek and Rishi and Mike for their time today, and I'd like to thank the audience for carving out time in their busy schedules to join us on the webinar today. You know, we covered a lot. It's kind of like looking at an iceberg. You really only got 10% of the visible mass that is below this whole generative AI movement. And I also invite anyone that is interested in wanting to find out more. There's a slide on the deck here. You'll see it probably distributed after this presentation. And then we'll also get to addressing all the questions that we didn't have time to address in real time during the conversation. So thanks again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we will end today's event. Thanks to all our presenters and to everyone in the audience for your time and attention. Have a great day.